Yep, that's fine, Stuart.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I'm delighted to welcome everyone today to this NMIS Insights online session. This is something that's particularly important to us within NMIS, and we know to many of the participants and indeed the audience. When we think about this subject, we often see certainly across engineering manufacturing, a lack of underrepresented groups, and whether that's gender balance or any other criteria you want to define. And often we talk about perceptions and the facts and how they influence each other. I'm personally, I'm a huge football fan, and I used to watch the football, and my wife would always say, look, these things called corners, waste of time, nobody ever scores from them. And I would insist, no, they do. And then about 2 months ago, I actually read the facts, and the facts are that the average team in England only scores a goal from a corner once every 10 games. So my perception was totally different from the facts. And it's what we do with these two things together that makes a difference. And so delighted to welcome you all today, and particularly to welcome the speakers. So we have Michael Fink from Mask Logic, Stacey Head from Sheware in Australia, and Dilraj Soki-Watson, the Director of Equate Scotland. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking anymore about NMIS. We are the national manufacturing asset for Scotland. We have a local focus but a global reach, as you can see from the esteemed speakers here today. And finally, just a little bit of housekeeping from me, and then I will hand over to Michael. So the webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel. Your webcams and your mics will be turned off. And if you have got any questions, we'd encourage you to put those into the chat tool, and we'll pick those up along the way. And then there will be some time at the end of the session for any questions you've got as well. So thank you for joining us. I will finish there and I will pass over. I did say Michael, my apologies, it is actually Stacey. So I will hand over to Stacey. Thank you.
Cheers, thank you, Stuart. Let me just share my screen. We'll make sure that that is sharing correctly. Can we see that okay? Yep, perfect. Good evening from Australia. Anyway, it's 9 o'clock my time. So thank you for having me this evening today. My name is Stacey. I'm the founder of Sheware. We are an Australian footwear brand specialising in women's safety work boots, work shoes and functional lifestyle footwear. We also retail a range of women's workwear and PPE, and we have an ethos that we don't stock anything that is a man's fit or unisex, which is actually just a man's fit anyway. So we have a very strong ethos about by women for women. And as Stuart said, there's a huge underrepresentation of women in manufacturing, in trades, in construction. And we're firm believers that to create a diverse workforce, you need to supply the correct uniforms or the correct equipment. So that's our passion. And the reason I started Sheware, we've had our 10th birthday this year, is because I gave up my career in ops and management and went into renovating properties. And it was on one of my properties. I am an Aussie girl. This is an Aussie thong, or otherwise known as a flip-flop. And I stood on a nail. So that black hole in the middle is a nail that went straight through my foot. And I searched far and wide for a pair of women's work boots, and I was just astounded at the lack of choice for women. So they were heavy, they were ill-fitting, and they were just men's. And some of the brands did advertise that they were women's, but they were impossible to find. So I sourced a pair off eBay from Europe, and they fell apart within about a month. So naively, I thought I could do this. This is crazy. There is a lot of women that need women's specific work boots. And then a couple of years later, I decided to do something about it. So 10 months of research and development, trying to understand global compliance and certifications. I launched Sheware from my home garage. So it was meant to be a bit of a side hustle while I kept continuing to renovate properties. I lived with boxes in every room of my house, and we were an online business. And a couple of months after I launched, We have a really big renovation show here called The Block. I'm not sure if it's in the UK. I don't think it is. And the female contestants on The Block wore our boots. So that changed the trajectory of the business from a little side hustle to moving into commercial premises and continuing the journey of work boots for women. So we started with 2 styles 10 years ago. We now have around 50 styles of shoes for women. And I have spent a lot of my time over the last 10 years researching and developing what makes a good female shoe, a good, healthy female shoe, and the anatomical differences between men and women's feet. And a lot of people don't actually understand, yes, we have a foot and 5 toes, men and women both, but there's actually quite a few anatomical differences between men and women's feet. And I'm sure all of us have been walking or standing for long periods of time, and there's nothing worse than sore feet at the end of the day. So I'll come back to the shoes, but I am quite passionate about ensuring women have access to good equipment. And how can we expect our staff, our people, to do their best work if they don't have their best equipment? Great example, if we all buy a pair of jeans and wear them out, they're not comfortable, they don't fit us right. Imagine being in them for 10 or 12 hours a day. You're not going to be comfortable. So why doesn't that translate to workwear? It still kind of dumbfounds me today. This is a great book from a UK author, Caroline Criado Perez. If you're interested in just the subconscious bias that exists in our world, it's a really interesting read. Invisible Women. It's very fascinating. So 71% of women are still wearing men's PPE. And this is obviously a safety issue, but it's a comfort and a fit issue as well. So to attract a diverse workforce and to retain, as Stewart said before, a diverse workforce, we've got to make them feel included. And safety, comfort and fit come first. A lot of people will look at our footwear. Some of our stuff is very colourful, but we also do the very traditional black, browns and wheats. The style and the colour come secondary. It's very much about comfort, fit and function for a female foot type. So like I said, how can we expect our people to do their best work if they don't have their best equipment? And PPE is probably the most important equipment that you can give your staff. It keeps them safe, it keeps them happy, it keeps them healthy, and it keeps them satisfied, really. If you're not given something that makes you feel included, you're not going to feel included. End of story. So anatomical differences between men and women's feet. There's a lot of science journals out there around this topic. There are quite some significant differences, and there is a lot of research around the fact that a woman's foot is not a scaled down version of a man's foot. So yeah, so here's some of the differences. The biggest ones probably that we really look at is the arch and the heel, and also the fact that our shoes are built. I'm a bit of a shoe nerd, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'll bore you all, but we build our shoes from scratch, where a lot of brands around the world will take a men's boot and just kind of size it down. So we have a firm belief that we build a boot from scratch, from the ground up, if you will. So our arches are very different. So if you're walking, standing for long periods of time, you need that support. And that comes down to body alignment, it comes down to comfort, and it comes down to personal injury as well. And the other big difference between men and women's feet is the heel. So if you look at a man's boot, quite often the heel and the forefoot will be the same width. With our boots, our heel is a lot narrower than the forefoot. And the main reason for that is stability and balance. And naturally that will help alleviate issues on site, especially if you're on uncommon ground, and it's great for body alignment as well. So there's all these little intricacies about what makes a healthy shoe a healthy shoe, and I don't think there's any shoe in the world that gets a battering like a work boot does, and there's probably not a shoe in the world that is worn as much as a work boot or a work shoe. We also do shoes for healthcare, medical, women that work in laboratories, in STEM, for example. So really important that we are wearing fit for purpose, good quality, durable materials from an environmental standpoint, but shoes that are made for us in particular. Like I said, I could go into a lot more detail. I'm not going to, but that is an example. One of our boots is on the left. So you can see the forefoot is a lot wider than the heel. So that's, like I said, great for stability, for balance, and for overall body alignment. So we very much design around the biomechanics of a foot and a female foot. There's a lot of research also around specifications. Excuse me. So we do different styles to suit different industries and different foot types as well. So if you have a wide foot versus a narrow foot, and also the specifications like safety toes, so impact and compression tested. All of our styles are tested under global standards, penetration resistant boots, and then all the way down to slip resistant boots. And there's this great NHS study about reducing slips and falls in the workplace. So 37% fewer slips by wearing proper fit for purpose slip resistant shoes. And the stat that gets me with this research is 1 million days absence from work just in the UK based around injuries like this in the workplace. So not only are we looking after women's health, we're looking after obviously OH&S for companies. So we're very much into saying to companies, look after your workforce from their perspective, but also from your perspective to reduce injuries and incidences on site. So yeah, we started as a work boot company, like I said, 10 years ago with 2 work boots, and we now have about 50 different styles of shoes, ranging from bright pink, if you so desire, to black and brown. So we're very much into choice for women. We sell globally, and yes, it's been a very interesting journey, let me put it that way, from someone who had no experience on importing or manufacturing or e-commerce to yeah, having a really good understanding of body health for women and for busy women at that. So yeah, that's us, shewear.com.au. Like I said, we sell globally, and yeah, we try and look after as many women as we can. That's me. Thank you, Stuart. Back to you.
Thanks. Thank you for that, Stacey, and really, really fascinating. Just a great story and a great journey. And I guess, of course, the other point is, you know, particularly when you're working in sites where there are multiple people, if you're protecting the women, you're also protecting the other workers and the rest of the workforce as well, because if someone, and any individual has an accident, then the likelihood is that other people will be involved in that in some way, shape or form. I think the other thing that says that, you know, what you've talked about and what Michael's going to talk about, and then Dilraj, is we are beginning to see some early evidence with, because of the huge challenges in the skills and particularly in the labour market, that actually we're seeing a bigger churn, more new workers coming into the sector, more people moving about, and very early signs that that is leading to, you know, greater problems with things like quality, which I guess would be expected, but actually also a greater rise in, unfortunately, in health and safety related incidents. So I think the more we can do to eliminate that, because this mega trend in terms of labour market shortages is not going away for the next decade or more. So we need to be getting more underrepresented groups into manufacturing, and we need to be looking after people and making sure they stay in and that they stay safe.
Yeah, yeah, retaining is just as important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that, and now I'll hand over to Michael.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Stuart. It's a pleasure to be here and to discuss and to share some of the details and you know, topics that are really important to me and that are important to MaskLogic and that align with the mission while we founded MaskLogic. And it's great to listen to Stacey's presentation, and I can echo everything, and then that resonates hugely with me. I'm not going to, because that would just be repeating what is important to repeat, but I think she made a point very clearly and also illustrated it really well. I want to briefly tell you what we do. I'll give you some statistics, maybe in the form of little stories and little tidbits that are easier to remember so it's not boring. I'll show you a short video of our first product, which will be available starting of next year. MaskLogic makes personally sized respirators for industry, for people who have jobs who need respiratory protection. Now, why would you want that? Why would you want a personally sized respirator? Now, most masks and respirators, and we have acute awareness of that through the most recent pandemic, are one size fits all, or they're one size probably fits all, or they come in small, medium, large. Now, when you walk into a shoe store, and that's I usually tell that story, it connects nicely to Stacey's presentation and her company, of course. You walk into a shoe store and you say, I'm a size 8 or I'm a size 11, and the person in the store says, great, we have this new model, it's a one size fits all. You wouldn't be happy, right? You'd also not be happy if they told you, well, that's probably a medium. It's like, no, I want my size 11, please. So there's a disconnect in how we're thinking about the diversity and the variation of the human face. It's hard to actually capture the differences in length and width and depth and all sorts of measurements between men and women, but also between white men, for which our standards are designed in most of the world, and other ethnicities or other groups. And we at Mask Logic most care about shape, not so much color of faces, because that's what we build for. Now, why is this important and why is there a need to change? Here's where the statistics bit comes in. When you look at the prevalence of work-related respiratory ill health. Now that's a mouthful, but that means that is asthma and mesothelioma and COPD and all sorts of nasty diseases that are, some of them terminal, some of them very hard to cure and very expensive to cure, that actually originate from an exposure at your workplace. When you look at the prevalence of these diseases, it's essentially flat over the past 30 to 40 years in the UK and the United States. And that strongly suggests that we're doing something wrong. And it's not filter efficiency. It's about fit, how well fit masks fit, and about comfort and the cultural acceptance, because when you put your respirator here or here, it also can do its job very well. And this is one of the things that we're addressing at Mask Logic by making personalized items. It's well known and everyone knows that when you forget your glasses on the plane, you go back. When you forget your Ray-Bans on the plane, you'll probably just get a new pair. So something that has your name on it, you will actually care for it better, it will lead to greater retention, and you know it protects you, not your neighbor, not your coworker, it protects you. Your employer has actually cared for you personally. So we're addressing the sort of inadequacy of the human mind to think 30 years ahead. When people work at a work site where things might drop from the sky, people wear a hard hat. If there's any danger to your eyes, you will wear goggles. If you are operating a rotating equipment, you wear gloves. But if there's some silica dust around, people might think that they have very strong lungs and it won't kill them 30 years down the line. So having something that is well-fitting, because we measure the human face and then tailor the respirator to the user's face, and then also make it personalized, therefore enticing the user to think about it as their own and not something that they have to wear. Thereby we address these two challenges of actually having a poor seal and poor compliance. Let me now find that video, or let's say, better say, find the button how to share the video. And that should just give you an overview of what our customer experience will be. So what you've seen in that short presentation is a focus on comfort, because that's something that's easy to see after wearing it just for 5 minutes. You get pressure sores with something that's not made to your face, but with ours, actually, these pressure sores are not here. What's harder to show in that video is that, and that's something that Stacey also touched upon, when you want to work at your best, why not wear the best equipment? It's well shown, particularly from actually soldiers and fighters in the military, that wearing this comfortable equipment, you will not reach your maximum physical prowess or performance. So workers who act physically, why would you want to wear something, or would the employer want to the worker to wear something that's not comfortable or less discomfortable? Now, as I said, this is going to be our first product. We're going to be in the market second half of 2024. Anticipating one question that I've gotten before, I've been criticized about the choice of the model in the video. We're happy to take interns that help us with that question. And with that, we'll hand it back to Stewart, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and another great example. And I guess, the messaging is consistent. If we don't have equipment, PPE equipment that is fit for purpose for individuals, then either they don't wear it or they don't wear it properly, and that obviously impacts on them. It can impact on colleagues, and obviously there are consequences for businesses as well. And as Michael made the point there, and I think Stacey touched on it as well, the more comfortable you are, the more likely you are to be productive, which is what we all want in manufacturing. We want a productive workforce. Finally, in terms of our guest speakers, I'm delighted to hand over to Dilraj Soki-Watson, who's the Director of Equate Scotland. Dilraj.
Thank you, Stuart. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. And thanks, Michael and Stacey, for your very fascinating presentations. And to the audience, what I'll say is, if they're talking about diversity and inclusion in products, I'll be talking about diversity and inclusion in the workforce. So it kind of almost underlines the ethos of why we need to have a diverse workforce, and what are the kind of arguments in favor of it. I'm just going to try put this presentation on to start with, and hopefully everybody should be able to see it. And just, I can't see people at all, so if somebody can just speak up and say you can see the slides, that'll be brilliant.
That's absolutely fine, yep.
Thank you. So a bit about Equate and why I'm here today, and hopefully, how we're going to be taking this work forward. So Equate Scotland was known as the Scottish Resource Centre for Women in Science, Engineering and Technology, and we were established in 2006. We are a national expert in gender equality throughout the STEM sectors, and we make a tangible and sustainable change, enabling women to study and work in these key sectors to develop, to further develop, and this is through supporting their recruitment, retention, and progression in the said sectors. Our vision is of a progressive STEM labor market, which means we work with a range of stakeholders, starting from employers, academics, women, as well as non-binary folk. Our services are free. We support for women. We support women in STEM and students by providing a range of free training and personal development opportunities, and also opportunities to connect with employers. We also kind of work with policy and change makers to influence the landscape of women in STEM in Scotland. We are hosted by Edinburgh Napier University, and we are based in our Craiglockhart campus, which is a very, very beautiful campus. So we are not for profit, and we are funded by Scottish Government. So we have a fairly focused remit, and the remit is to make sure that we are creating pathways and aligning pathways for the progression of women into STEM. In terms of who we work with women students who are 16 plus, professional women and career changers, private and public sector organizations, academic and education partners, and also public and professional bodies. And there's a lot more information on our website as to kind of the typical activities we do, so I'm not going to go into much detail. The reason I'm here today is part of the work we do is gathering evidence and getting a feel of where things are within the labor market, and also where women are in the STEM journey. So earlier this year, we commissioned 2 active pieces of research. One's recently concluded. The first one was Women in STEM. This was the first of its kind qualitative study in Scotland where we looked at mapping women who are currently in the workforce across a range of industries on capturing their insights on how things were and how they felt. And the findings were fairly starkly kind of similar to what the global studies are saying. So nothing shocking in terms of what the evidence is saying. There are kind of key themes that emerge, and all of these themes around flexible working, around culture of the organizations, around adjustments being made for disabled women and non-binary folk, and also the perceptions, as in Stewart earlier spoke about perception, the sectors where the perception on how flexible working and hybrid working is currently being viewed have been very critical in being barriers for women to progress. So that report will be published on the 15th of this month and will be available on our website. And for folk who are looking for very Scotland-specific data on women's experiences in STEM, I would highly recommend you to kind of access that resource, which will be available free of charge. Along with that piece of research, we are currently, and this is why I'm here today to also talk a bit more about our engagement with employers. We are currently conducting a research on employers' perspectives, on STEM employers' perspectives. We work very closely with a lot of employers on building their organizational capacity on ED&I, which is Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Initiatives. And these can range from training or mapping, doing gap analysis and kind of mapping what activities they are doing, which are inclusive and what's not, and then finding resources and support to make sure these organizations are able to upskill themselves. So as part of that, what we are hoping to do is get some post-COVID data and evidence on where organizations feel they are in their journey. It's really critical for us to understand not only how women's experiences have panned out, but also the employers' perspectives on where they feel they are progressing. And while these studies are not causative, but we are hoping to correlate some of that evidence to either engage with employers on further initiatives or see where the bottlenecks are. So this research is again as I said, to gain an in-depth understanding of current diversity and inclusion initiatives within the workforce in Scotland. And the results of the survey will help us develop and further kind of fine-tune our range of products and services for employers. The survey takes about 15 minutes approximately to complete, so it's not a very long survey. We've had surprisingly, it's been a challenge, but we've surprisingly had a good amount of responses since I last spoke to Stewart about this. We've had about 30 responses so far, which for a small program like ours is quite it's quite a healthy number, and we're hoping to take that number up to 40 or 50 if we can. The survey runs up till the end of this year. And as a thank you to the organizations I'll be participating, we would be providing you access to a free what we call Lunch and Learn webinar. That webinar would enable you to understand the EDI kind of framework within which your organization should participate or operate in if you're not already doing that, and also identify areas of improvement. So that would be available to the participants free of charge. And as a thank you, we'd also be offering you access to a credit for an advert on our Career Hub service, which is again an employer focused and a women's focused service. It's a job advert hub. So we would be happy to share that platform with you to showcase any of your adverts online. And of course, this is completely voluntary and anonymized. So we are not hoping, no kind of data will indicate any connections with employers. We've completely anonymized it. In fact, if you came back to us and asked us, oh, can we access that? Just the way the process is, we wouldn't be able to do that. What we would suggest is, should you wish to avail the advert and the lunch and learn offering, at the end of the survey, there's a separate, very kind of small form, which is separate to the survey, where you just contact us, giving us the details saying, we've responded to the survey and we'd like to avail the service. And both those pieces of information are completely separate. So we wouldn't be able to distinguish what your response was from the service you're looking to seek. And last but not the least, we've got a QR code here. I presume this is a recorded session, so it should be available as well online. And we've got this live until the end of this year. Please help us get as many responses as you can, because if we are not able to get that learning, it'll be difficult for us to shape services for our service users, which are not only employers but women and non-binary folk. And for folk who are more interested in knowing what we do and how to get in touch with us, feel free to check out our website. We've also got a newsletter. If you're not on it, we would recommend you to sign up to it, because we regularly share a lot of resources and opportunities for self-development for not only individuals and organizations. So that'd be a good space for you to come and check out what's happening in the inclusion and STEM landscape in Scotland. Thank you very much for that, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Dilraj, and I would endorse everyone and encourage people to go and do that and share that information as well. You know, I started off by talking about perceptions and facts, and if we don't do the research, we don't have the facts, and we can't then begin to shift some of these long-standing perceptions. So thank you everyone for attending today. The other thought that, before I just ask for any questions or indeed comments or further thoughts from the panel, the other thought that does occur to me is just, looking at the four of us who are on the panel here, 50% of us are wearing glasses. And I know if I went into my opticians and they said to me, here's a women's pair of glasses, or here's a medium-sized pair of glasses, I would be saying, no, thank you very much. I want a pair that actually fit me, because I need them. They're important. So make me more productive, make me safer. So I think there's a good analogy there too. Any kind of final thoughts or comments from any of the panel, and then we'll see if there's any questions from any of the guests. No?
I've got one,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yeah, go on,
I'm going to be cheekier, actually. I'm just going to take this opportunity to brazenly perhaps connect with Michael and Stacey both as stakeholders for the work we're doing. I think it's so super critical to, really show practical dimensions of what inclusion and diversity looks like, and not just kind of talk the talk. And I'd welcome an opportunity to connect offline to see if there's ways we can collaborate, especially the fact that you're doing such bespoke work for the underrepresented in the room. So yeah, I just wanted to say brilliant work, and it would be great to connect offline.
Absolutely. Yes, with pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And well done to you as well. I think it's important, the old adage, you can't be what you can't see. So I think it's important that we all put our hands up and show what we're doing.
Yeah, we have a saying in Scotland, no cheek, no chance. So I would just encourage everyone to be bold and ambitious. And, and at the end of the day, what we're here about in NMIS is about being transformative and making an impact. So if all that happens from this call is you three talk to each other and something comes out of that, we'll have made an impact. Hopefully it goes a bit wider. And I just wonder if there are any questions from any of the viewers. It's your final chance. Okay. Well, at that point, I think I'd like to thank everyone. Thank you all for attending, and thank you for travelling to this webinar from far distant parts of the world. And I'll hand back to Debbie.
Okay, thanks, Phil.